Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you all for coming out here today to honor our father, John Thomas Fawcett. I wanted to just say a couple things, and the main thing I wanted to say was that one of my favorite things about Dad was hearing his stories. He was just an absolutely amazing storyteller. And some of my earliest memories were curling up in bed at night as Dad was reading stories to me. And yes, he would read like the novelization of Star Wars, doing the voices of Yoda and Luke Skywalker and everyone, and I had a little old tape recorder, and I would record him telling those stories, or reading those stories to me and play them back. And wish I still had those tapes. That was one of my favorite things, was like listening to all the Yoda scenes in Dagobah as Dad was reading the voices. When he would read The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. Those were great memories. And the stories he would tell from his life were always just wonderfully told and fascinating. And one I want to relay is a story about stories. Most of you know that Dad had a long history with President Johnson. And I won't go into all of that, but after the president passed, one of the things Dad did at the library was pull together a bunch of old recordings of LBJ telling jokes, just LBJ's humor. And he went through all those old recordings. That was the kind of thing that didn't come out in those official remarks. But LBJ was a great storyteller too. And he had this, I don't know if it's like a reel-to-reel or like an old cassette deck that he made this compilation of jokes on. And he got a copy of it and gave it to Lady Bird. And he sent it to Lady Bird. And he was a little nervous about how Lady Bird would react. And like, is it appropriate to send a bunch of jokes when someone's in mourning? And he didn't hear back. A few weeks went by, a month went by, a couple months went by. And he never heard what Lady Bird's reaction to that was. But then one day the Secret Service came by with that old tape deck and the recording. And the Secret Service agent said, John, can you get another tape recorder and a new copy of this? Lady Bird's worn it out. She loves that recording so much. And when Elaine and I were in grad school at University of Texas, I took a class with Walt Rostow. Brad was down there too. I don't think do you take a class with Walt?
Yeah.
And Walt's, he was obviously in the Johnson administration, and he taught his class there on the top floor of the LBJ library. And there were like 6 of us in the class, and he arranged to have a little party for us out at his house out in the Texas Hill Country. And we got to go out there and have some wine and cheese and crackers and stuff. And he said his neighbor might come by and join us. And I was like, all right, love to meet Walt's neighbor, I guess. And just sipping my wine, chatting with my classmates, feeling like a very sophisticated grad student. And Walt's neighbor came over, and it was Lady Bird. And Lady Bird came by, and I got to sit down with Lady Bird, and I told her that story. I told her about my dad and my mom and all the things they did at the library, and told her, my dad made that tape, and that you got to listen to. And it's if you all are curious, go to the LBJ library there's an animatronic LBJ, big LBJ robot on a fence that's telling these stories with this recording. Highly recommend it. But Lady Bird, you know, she lit up. She remembered that tape and that experience. Just had that appreciation for those stories. Anyway, I did a series of interviews with Dad, kind of an oral history in the early days of COVID, going through his life and telling his stories. And so have a few recordings that I'm just really glad I was able to make of Dad telling some of those jokes. And I'm gonna keep the slideshow going, turn down the music, and thought maybe I'd play a little bit of Dad's stories for you all to hear. Owen, go ahead and cue that up.
It follows you. Get around